A lot of companies, especially in the breast imaging sector, focused a lot on the detecting cancer better than the radiologists, what they often claim. At the moment, are all a little bit all disappointing and underperforming.
Welcome to the Swisspreneur Show, a podcast about startup stories and learnings from experienced entrepreneurs. Here's your host, Sylvan.
Alex, a very well welcome to the Swisspreneur Show. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you for having me here. It's an honor to be the show, and I'm looking forward to this interesting talk we will have. Thank you very much.
Same here. You're the co-founder and CTO at b-rayZ, an AI medical software for breast cancer early detection. Before we talk about the important costs that you tackle and also what your business actually does, I want to start with your personal background. You have 2 master's degrees and 1 PhD. Is there something about tackling tough challenges that really excites you?
I have quite an academic background, so I studied a lot and I finished a couple of studies. I always liked studying and I always liked learning, and I had the opportunity to choose freely what I want to study and also choose interesting topics. And I also had the chance to study on really great universities, one being the RWTH in Aachen and one being the University of Zurich, where I then worked later on as a postdoc after I gained my PhD from Aachen. So, and I always think, especially in what we are doing as we are tackling a medical problem, that it always needs to be backed by science and needs to be backed evidence-based. And for that, I think you need to have a certain level of studies and how to work scientifically and understand the topic also on the scientific level if you want to solve really something in medical problems.
Absolutely. And with your background, did you ever consider a career in academia or to continue your career in academia? And if so, what made you leave that dream for the startup world then eventually?
Yes, it was always my plan to have an academic career. Everything was basically set. I also did my habilitation, my Veni Legendi at the University of Zurich. So I'm also now eligible to teach there at the university, actually, as a associated professor, more or less. So it was always my plan, actually, to stay in academia. But then when we started with this venture, which b-rayZ derived from the university hospital as a spin-off. So we really had a clinical problem we wanted to solve there. And it was first just science and just a project on a scientific level, when we then later on discovered, okay, this could also be a nice product and this could also be a nice company, actually, at the end, doing multiple products. So what made me leave academia, it was really that we had this project deriving from the university as a scientific project. And then it was something which was basically new to me. It was really an applicable solution, which was really used in the clinic. And this was much more exciting than just doing research, so to speak, where you always tackle a certain problem, then you solve it, and then you go to the next one, but you never produce some kind of product which really is being used in the other clinics. So this was the exciting part, I think, of our solution and of our product, that you really made it work, and it was an applicable solution being used in multiple clinics.
That certainly is very motivating, yeah, I imagine. And I wonder, where does your entrepreneurial drive come from? Did you have any role models in your family or anyone else that inspired you to then really pursue the entrepreneurial instead of the academic career?
No, actually not. Nobody of my family is an entrepreneur, so to say. So my brother and my sister also studied. My brother works as a medical doctor. My sister studied economics, and is now actually working at b-rayZ. This is also good. And my mother is a teacher, and my father also studied economics. So we don't have any entrepreneurial history, so to say, in the family. I'm basically the first one. And I think it is the driver for me is that it is so closely related to science and to a scientific background and to a medical problem we are tackling. And now, in order to solve this problem, you need to do a company. So that's why I think this is what drives me there in order to get the scientific evidence-based stuff out as a product. The entrepreneurship is the vehicle to do that.
Another tough challenge to solve, so to speak.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, it's a totally different thing. Of course, I mean, as a scientist and as with an academic background, I'm of course know how to solve and how to tackle unknown problems. And I think we work, and all of the founders are quite academic based and scientific based. So we go really in a structured way. We are solving problems, but sometimes this helps a lot in the entrepreneurial world. But sometimes also it is better to have a little bit more gut feeling and do things a little bit faster out of your intuition rather than sketching it completely down. This is not always possible.
Absolutely. And I want to go back to the early days of b-rayZ. You founded the company in 2019. We were a total of 3 co-founders. And you yourself, you've basically been working in hospital for the past decade. So I was wondering, when did you then first realize that there was a gap in radiology?
So there was always a gap in radiology, basically, but there was not. We have to go a little bit back. So when we are solving problems in medicine, especially in radiology, before there was artificial intelligence, um, things were more solved on a model-based approach, meaning um, you thought of you had a hypothesis, you thought of it, you created a model which basically showed your hypothesis. Then you sampled some data, and then you looked if the data fits into the model you thought about. And if the data was fitting into the model, then your hypothesis was probably right, as long as it was not done differently and shown differently, and you could assume that you had to find the right model. This is always how science has been done, basically. And with the awakening, so to speak, of artificial intelligence, which is not a brand new concept, but now there is basically the resources to really do it and also do it on a not only on supercomputers, but everybody basically can now build some AI models because I don't know, NVIDIA has given the GPUs and Google has published TensorFlow and so on. There were a couple of trigger points, but now basically science is working data driven. So meaning you don't think that much about the model, you just collect the data and then let's put it in simple words, put the data in an algorithm and you get spit out a model, right? So you do it the other way around. You collect the data and you generate the model out of the data. Before that, you generated the model and tried to fit in the data. Now it's the other way around. So there is really a change, paradigm change when it comes to science. This is the same with, I don't know, with weather, for example. Yeah, when you have a weather model, normally you have a model representative of how weather works, and then you try to fit in the data in order to predict the weather. Nowadays, you probably collect all the weather data of the last, I don't know how many decades, and predict the model out of the data. So there was always, coming back to that, there was always a gap in radiology, but there was not the possibility to solve all those gaps. And now with new technologies, one is able to solve more of those gaps by using artificial intelligence, by having much more data. And actually also especially radiology, we are creating more and more data every day. Just to give you a quick example, a CT scan, I don't know, 20 years ago or 10 years ago, took you maybe, I don't know, 5 minutes and you got, let's say, 30 images, right? 30 slides. Now it takes you 12 seconds for 128 slides. But at the end, somebody has to look at all this data. So And the more data you generate, the more data you have to look at as a radiologist, as a medical doctor. You can't say, yeah, okay, I create 128 slides now, but I only look at 10. This is not possible. You have to look at those 128. So you need some systems which help you there in order to handle all this massive amount of data. And this is now possible with modern technology, I think. So the gaps have always been there. There have always been some flaws in the workflow in every medical department, actually. We have seen also now in the COVID pandemic that many hospitals are not digitalized. When you look at Germany, for example, it was a horrible scenario there. What turned open there, that they did the paperwork via fax still and stuff like this. So unimaginable for a country like Germany, where what you would never think, but this is true. So there have always been gaps, and now you can solve those gaps maybe better.
And you said before that your research led to the foundation of your company, b-rayZ. Was there a certain trigger point when you then realized, hey, now we really need to start a company based on the research that we found here? Or how did that happen? Because I imagine it quite a journey to go from research to founding a company.
Mm-hmm. It was really the first. So normally when you do scientific projects, you do some scientific stuff, you write some computer scripts, maybe you run those scripts, maybe a MATLAB script or whatever, you create some plots, and then you write everything together into a publication, you publish it, and then it's basically done, and you start with the next one, right? And this is also a little bit, as a scientist, this is a little bit the currency in which you are weighted. Because as a scientist, at the university hospital, I don't generate revenues, right? I don't look at images. I don't deal with patients. I just cost money. But ideally, I'm able to get my own funding, and this is ideal, but sometimes this doesn't work. So actually, I just cost money. But the currency in which I am basically looked at and weighted by the department is the number of publications. So of course, you do your project, you do a publication, and you do your next project. What we did differently with the project from which now b-rayZ then emerged is that we didn't publish it at first. We really created an application which was used by the technicians in the hospital. So we didn't do it by saying our aim is to publish it now as fast as possible. The aim was first, hey, there is really something what we could improve with a simple program actually. And now there are the possibilities to create this program because now there is AI and now there is deep learning, and now we can train this on basically off the stock computers you can buy everywhere. So let's do this now. And then we really created this at the beginning, really simple application for the technicians, which gave them a prediction, an AI-based prediction of the so-called breast density. The breast density is a measurement which obviously measures the breast density, and it is from class A to D, A, B, C, and D. And the high dense breasts are C and D, and the low dense breasts are A and B. And the rule is for high dense breasts, C or D, you should do a subsequent ultrasound after the mammography. So the mammography is the standard imaging, the X-ray. But if the breast is too dense, then you need to go for ultrasound because you wouldn't see potential lesions or cancer in a dense breast. But this density classification is always done by the radiologist normally, and the radiologist does this on a visual inspection. So there is no rule, okay? It is not like you're not counting pixels or something like that. It's qualitative and not quantitative. And the technicians were supposed to do this classification by their own, but they were afraid to do this. So they always called the radiologist, and the radiologist was not there. It was somewhere else. The patient was sitting there and so on, and nobody knew what's happening next with the patient. Can the patient go home, or does she need to go for an ultrasound? So then we created basically the simple application which gave an AI-based prediction of the breast density to the technician in real time, immediately after the images were acquired. And then the technician could decide on her own, does the patient need to go to the ultrasound or can she go home? And this shortened the workflow a lot. Transition times for the patients were, of course, shorter. More slots were available in the mammography unit. And it was a simple application, basically, but differently than other scientific projects, as we didn't publish this immediately. We first created the app. And this was then the trigger point that we saw, okay, there is really something, with a simple solution, you can change something there.
Mm-hmm. And it also sounds like this manual process, when the expert is there, that there's still quite some room for error because it's manual work. So I would assume that your model then is also probably way more accurate than the manual labor put in by humans.
Yeah, it depends always a little bit. I mean, what the model is it is more accurate than if you look at, for example, the inter-reader correlation of 2-3 radiologists, because there is then a high distance. One radiologist says it's C, the other says D, the other says B. So, of course, you can always find a radiologist who's better than the model. But also the one radiologist will have a high intra-reader discrepancy. So when he reads the same mammographies one day later, he will probably say something different. What the model does is it is, maybe more accurate, but what the main thing is, it standardizes. It puts a standard there. And it is repeatable, the same result. And I think this is not a hard decision we are doing there with the AI. Okay, it is not like you die or you live, right? It is a really soft decision. You have further ultrasound or not, and nothing bad will happen if you miss the ultrasound. So then you go next year. If it is really obvious cancer, it will be seen on the image. So everything is okay. It's a soft decision. But it needs to be standardized. And this can be done by an AI model. Better, in my opinion, than by a radiologist, of course.
Absolutely. And based on that, technology that you developed, you then also went into the patenting process to really get a patent. How did that process look like? Was that an easy process, or was that as hard as it sounds from the outside?
Yeah, software patenting is always a hard thing, and also arguable if it makes sense, right? Because at the end you will write a couple of lines code differently, and then you went around the patent. So what we patented is not the software code or something like this. We patented a process and a quality process we want to implement, and a certain procedure, how we train and how we develop our software and how our software is being used. So we patent this. And this was, yes, there was a big patent research. Of course, we had help there. And it is quite complex. We looked at it on a more high level, I have to say, and then it was a little bit more outsourced, and we had helpers there who did this for us. But already the research and all the paperwork to be done was quite a challenge, and took quite some time and resources. At the end, you never know if it is needed or if it was, if you really will need it. But I think it brings up the intellectual property of the company, and I think in this early stage where we are and where we have been at that time, even more, I think creating and preserving your IP is the crucial thing. I think you have nothing else than IP, so you should keep your IP and create as much IP as possible in your own company and outsource, this is my personal opinion, the less as possible. Whatever you can do by yourself, do it by yourself. And if you learn it, then learn it on the job. And then you can outsource it. If you have once understood it, it doesn't need to be perfect. Of course, there can be front-end, whatever developers who are much better than you are, but at least understand how it works and then outsource it. But I would never outsource it without having it understood before.
Yeah, it sounds like you're a tech company. You want to outsource the whole technical development. That just doesn't make any sense. That's your key capability that you absolutely need to have in-house.
exactly. I mean, you can outsource, of course, I don't know, your accounting. Yeah,
Sure.
it doesn't make sense to make your own accounting. Sure. Um, Also, yeah, at least understand a little bit how accounting works, but then I would, of course, outsource it all legal or stuff like this. Yes. But if your core competence and your core business is tech, then you don't outsource your tech.
Definitely. So now you have the patent, but then very soon after, you also had very impressive numbers to show. You have scanned more than 60,000 patients in 10 clinical sites, and you also have 100% customer retention rate. That is crazy, these numbers, just to look at them. How do you get to that super, super good level?
So I think key of our product is that we really understand clinical processes and we really understand what is going on in the clinic. And we never created software because it's technological possible. We never try to fit technology just for the sake of technology into the clinical workflow. We understand the clinical workflow and then we build a solution which is tackling that problem, and the solution is using cutting edge technology, of course. So I think this is one key, that we are really experts in the field and then we really build the right solution for the right people. Those numbers you just mentioned, that now even more patients scanned, of course, and we are now, I think, in 2/3 of all the university hospitals in Switzerland. We have now also entered the German market, the Norwegian market. Greece and Italy are following quite soon with installations, and still the retention rate is as good as before. Why is this? Because when the people use our software, our solution, the technologist, the radiologist, the clinical manager, they exactly see that we solve their problems and that we help them in maintaining and making their process better by really asking the right questions. At the end, it is always about, do you ask the right questions? You have all the answers in the data, but you need to ask the right question. And if you ask the wrong question, then you can't match the right answer.
That makes a lot of
So,
sense. Yeah.
and I think you only know the right questions, in my opinion, if you really come from the clinical field, or if you really listen to your customers and potential customers, what are their pain points? And I can tell you, there are, of course, companies out there who are doing, they're also doing great products, nothing said there. But a lot of companies, especially in the breast imaging sector, focused a lot on the diagnostic part. So finding the lesions and so on. Detecting cancer better than the radiologist, what they often claim, which the sentence in itself doesn't make sense because a radiologist doesn't detect cancer. A radiologist detects something which looks suspicious, and then there's a biopsy done, and then you know if it's cancer or not. But no radiologist will tell you you have cancer if he just looks at the images. Anyhow, those were highly claimed, and there was a high, yeah, hope that those programs and systems will help a lot, but they at the moment are all a little bit all disappointing and underperforming. And now the community, so to speak, the breast imaging community, the radiologists and technicians there, come back to the conclusion that they need stuff which helps their workflow, but not that much in their diagnostic procedure. And we basically tack it from the beginning on workflow improvement by density, by quality assurance, and so on, different modules. Of course, we are also doing diagnostics, but it was not our first product we jumped on. It was first the whole workflow procedure on a proper way, and then we started with the diagnostic part. And I think this is a strong asset of the company, that we have a good portfolio there.
And I think that's a perfect story of really understanding the problem that you're solving and how it fits into the daily life of your customer. Because you can have the best product, if it's not applicable in the actual workflows, nobody will use it, right? And that's a very strong.
Yes, exactly. And of course, it's not that sexy. Of course, it's much sexier if you say, "Hey, we have a software which can which detects cancer better than 5 radiologists." Yeah, super sexy, super good marketing. Maybe you get, I don't know, in Forbes or whatever, or you have maybe a news feature, um, or in Switzerland there's 20 Minuten press text or something. But at the end, no radiologist will buy it. And those are at the end your customers. We don't have a B2C, we have a B2B business here with institutions. But the other stuff is obviously much not that sexy as diagnostics. If you say, yeah, we have workflow improvement and do quality assurance of automatic quality assurance of your breast images. Okay. Sounds a little bit like you do your Steuererklärung, write your taxes. It's also not. But it's needed, and it's a pain, and it's a tedious task. And this is always key, I think. You need to find the tedious tasks in a department, whatever it is, if it is a medical department or whatever. In our case, radiological department, you need to find the tedious tasks which can and need to be standardized. And then AI is a good friend for you. But diagnosing cancer is not a tedious task. It's the core competence of the radiologist. And it's what he has been, or she has been trained on for I don't know how many years. So, yeah, I'm not sure if this is the first project you should jump on if you are doing AI. There are a couple of things before you even start with diagnosing an image.
I think that's a very valuable key takeaway for the listeners here. I also wonder about your business model. You said software is behind it. Do you have a traditional classic subscription model with licensing fees, or how does your business model work?
Yeah, we have a subscription model and the pricing basically, or the model works that we have a two-dimensional price model, quite straightforward, where one dimension is the functionality of the software, the other dimension is the volume of the patients the institution is scanning, and based on those two factors, basically, you come to a price at the end, which is paid on a yearly basis, plus maintenance and service.
Perfect. And to make all of that happen, of course, you also need a team. We heard before you were 3 co-founders in total. So I was wondering, where have you actually met your co-founders, Christina and Andreas?
Mm-hmm. So Christina was my direct colleague in University Hospital. So we shared an office, and we were both she was already working there. And then I joined the research team, magnetic resonance tomography research. And Andreas I have to say, was the leader. So he's a radiologist, and he was the leader of the breast imaging department, so to speak, or breast imaging unit of the hospital. He was also one of the leitenden Oberärzte, so senior doctor, so to speak, senior physician. And now he's no longer at the University Hospital Zurich. He is now the head of department of a hospital, also in Zurich, in Wetzikon. But they were direct colleagues. So Andreas basically was my superior, so I was reporting to him, and Christina was my direct colleague.
Fantastic.
So, and maybe fun fact, Christina and Andreas are also married.
Oh, perfect. Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's a strong co-founding team then, right there.
Yes.
So let's also talk about some of the obstacles along the way. So launching a medical device or software in a medical environment, I imagine that to be quite high regulations, a quite difficult task to actually do. So what did that mean for you in terms of development and certifications, but also in terms of integrating into existing hardware and software products that the hospitals out there were already using and had in place?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it was, of course, one of the biggest challenges at the beginning, or is still one of the biggest challenges, I have to say. Now you have a reform. Now it's no longer MDD. Now it's MDR. You want to enter US. At some point, you need FDA and so on. So, yeah, I think also the quality management, which you need if you want to do a medical device of the class we are doing. We are a medical CE certified medical device of class 2A, so it's quite high. Maybe it could have been possible to go for a lower class, which would have resulted in less work less headache. But on the other hand, I have to say, going there for a high class is always a little bit better, because then, first of all, your product becomes better because you have a quality management system. And when you use your quality management system, your product really gets better. Although it is annoying, but it really gets better if you use it properly. And second of all, it is also a good entry barrier for competitors, because if they want to do a similar product, they also have to go at least for your class, otherwise they can't compete. And of course, hospitals like or institutions do like class 2A better than 1, because they know it's better regulated and more effort. So yeah, we built the first quality management system we built completely by ourselves. It was a document-based system, and Andreas, Christina, and I did this with a lot of readings and some help by an advisor, but most of it we did by ourselves. And then we really did the technical documentation and certified our first product completely by ourselves. And now we have grown in the team, and when we have dedicated quality management department, basically with people working there doing only this. And it's not that much now on Christina and on my desk anymore to do that. But it was a pain point, definitely, and it is still a pain point. You get every year audited for a couple of days. You can also get an unannounced audit once per year additionally, or every 3 years, I think, additionally. You need to certify all the time you want to create a new product. It's not like you just release a new product. You have to certify it first, and so on and so on. And this also makes your sales cycles really long, of course, in medicine.
But from what I hear, it is a challenge to obtain these certifications, but at the same time, it's a bit similar to the patent, right? It's also a protection for you as a company. Once you have obtained it, it also protects you from easy competition, so to speak.
Yes, definitely. And at the end, one has to be honest. At the end, actually, I can say I'm CTO, and I still say it. At the end, your quality management system is your product.
No, fair point.
So if of course, my product is software code, but theoretically, I could, if I would give to somebody my quality management system, he could, if it is well done, and ours is quite well, then he could rebuild the product, or she. So the QM at the end is the product, not the code. Of course, somebody has to write the code, but at the end, the QM is the product.
I like that. You said the long sales cycles. You are already active in a very international setup, so you have clients all over the world. How do you acquire them, and how did you manage to go international so early on, basically from day one, as it feels from the outside perspective?
So, of course, Switzerland was not easy, but the access to the Swiss market was a little bit easier for us, as we know, and a lot of the key opinion leaders there, and we know the head of departments and so on. So it was easy to at least enter in a pilot stage quite early in different departments. Of course, Zurich was the first one as we emerged from there, but then it was soon then Basel and so on different sites. And then we have quite, as we said before, we have quite a strong scientific background, and people know Christina's, Andreas, and my name from publications, I would say. We have a lot of peer-reviewed publications out there. And so they also know us via this spectrum, I would say. And then the breast imaging world is a small world. So radiology is small, basically a small community, and it's an island, basically. And breast imaging is then again a village on that island where everybody knows each other quite good. And there are certain congresses where the whole community meets, and there are not that many players in Europe there. And of course, you have your screening programs. You have a screening program in Germany. You have a screening program in the Netherlands. You have a screening program in Norway, which basically the biggest ones, I would say. And if you know the other people, then things get quite fast communicated to all the other stakeholders in the different countries.
That makes
So
sense.
it's a combination.
It's really also your reputation that you've built over the past years that helps you now with that market entry, basically.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it is always different if I'm approaching a medical head of department with my or Andreas even, but let's say I do because Andreas is not that much in the operative team. So I approach the medical head, the chief of department there. And it's of course different if I approach him or a sales guy approaches the guy. Nothing against the sales guy, but the sales guys can step in then later and does all the things does all the magic he does. But for a first door opener, being taken seriously, and it's they it's a lot of topic related talk, of course, a lot of science talk, a lot of radiological talk, which not necessarily every sales guy can do, and you don't want to embarrass there yourself. And also there, medical doctors are, mostly they are medical doctors, are also waiting that you say something wrong there, that you maybe have a wrong meaning of something or whatever, because this is their core competence and they want to be taken seriously. So I think the approach, opening the door, is always better if Christina or I do it. And then after the first introduction, the sales team can overtake it, of course.
And the long sales cycles, that's not only a challenge when you are acquiring clients yourself, but also to raise funds, I imagine, because that's something that is usually a challenge from an investor's perspective, or a risk at least. So how do you manage that when raising funds? Because obviously you need funds with these long development and sales cycles, but at the same time, it's not that easy to show traction when you try to raise funds. How did you overcome that challenge?
We were able to reduce a little bit, or quite a lot actually, the sales cycles by really making the software much easier to implement and install in every clinical site, no matter what the prerequisites are, what their scanner is, what their internal network looks like. It's actually quite easy to install. It's a plug and play solution basically on a virtual server they have to provide. So by that we could reduce the sales cycles. And then we also reduced the sales cycles by reducing the time of the pilot. We had too long pilot times, I have to say, which even doesn't make sense because if the pilot is running for too long time, it's not being used. And then you go there and they said, oh yeah, no, we never used the software actually. We're pushing to get the pilot paid. Not a lot, but a little bit. And then if the client decides for the license or for the subscription, of course, we deduct then the pilot price from the whole subscription. So doesn't pay more, of course, but this also helps us a little bit on overcoming those long sales cycles that we already generate some revenues, at least when we do a pilot installation. Because actually the pilot installation is the same as a full installation. It's not like I'm stripping down the software there and saying, oh, you just get the pilot. Of course, I want them the whole spectrum to be used. And even the service must even be even better than if they are paying customers, actually, because you want them to become customers. So you are like calling them on a daily basis, basically, and ask if everything is all right. So, pilot is quite exhausting, actually, also from point of spending.
But I like these key takeaways again here. You know, you said shorten your pilot and make them paid while deducting the payment if they become a customer later on. I think these are, again, two very helpful key takeaways for anyone doing B2B sales.
You will always, in medical, you always will have long sales cycles. And the department needs to plan the budget. You need to know when to do your sales. Yeah. If you start doing your sales in November, it's probably too late because all the budgeting was already done. So you need to wait another year until they open up a new budget. So then you need to know to whom do you talk. Who's paying in the department? Is it the IT because it's a server, or is it the radiological department? Whose budget is being used? And then you need to understand also how high can you go from your price, because at some point, if you go too high, the department has to ask maybe the university, the hospital overall, the head of the hospital, if the price is too high. So Then you can play, of course, then also with maintenance and service. So maybe reduce your software price, but put your maintenance high. Then they have a different budget because they have a different budget for maintenance than they have for software acquisition. So a lot of things to dig into, and basically at the end you have to do a business plan for every hospital is different and works different.
Yeah. You then raised a round of 4 million, where we are also happy to contribute with the Swisspreneur Syndicate. So we're also happy investors in b-rayZ. So I now wonder, what is next for you? What are your plans with b-rayZ? I heard you have some new products lined up for this and next year. Where do you want to go with b-rayZ?
Yes, there will come some new products. So we are now basically under certification for the new product. I think it will be CE certified within the next couple of, hopefully 2 months. There was a little bit delay because of the notified body. They were quite overwhelmed by applications because they changed the directive from MDD to MDR, and yeah, it was a little bit of chaos there. I think they have postponed it again now, but so the whole transition time was postponed again. Anyhow, we made there quite a lot of noise and pressured our notified body so that they will have, I think tomorrow will be the first stage of the audit actually. So then hopefully we will be through this soon. So new CE certified products, and then we are planning also the US market entry is definitely a topic we want to tackle. Maybe by end of this year, being ready with FDA, that we have the paperwork at least, that we can start penetrating US market. And this then we need to see. Probably there is then a second financing round needed, because if you want to do US, you need to do it right, and you need some budget to do it.
Definitely, but that's a big milestone to expand to the US
That would
market.
be That would be exactly, yeah. At the end, there is no way around the US market, and I think our product also fits there very, very good. And we can also. They have, of course, a different system there, and you need to also to understand the US market. It's totally different than the European market when it comes to medicine and when it comes to breast imaging, especially. But I think our product is a good fit there, and also works really good in their workflow and setup.
Amazing. So, Alex, to wrap up today's conversation, we also prepared some rapid fire questions for you. So, I either give you a short question or two options or multiple options to choose from,
Okay.
and you have to answer in one sentence. You ready?
Okay, I try. Yes.
Let's go. Are you better safe or sorry?
Safe or sorry?
Yeah.
I'm better safe.
How many hours of sleep did you get last night?
Not a lot. 4.
How do you
4 or
stay?
5.
Yeah, sure. That's, yeah. You have a new kid now, right? So,
Yes, I have an 8 month. My son is 8 months old. This was the problem from this night. I just went too late to bed and woke up too early. So
I see.
classical thing.
How do you stay healthy with everything that's going on?
Yeah, too less, I have to say. I would like to do more sport, but I try to keep this a little bit up. But it's a little bit going down in the last time. So, but if I can make it, I go to the gym at least twice a week, and I'm living next to a nice small lake. And on the weekends, I try to have at least a run around the lake.
Nice. Coffee or tea for you?
Definitely coffee. No, not even when I'm ill, I'm drinking tea. No,
Yeah.
never.
Researcher or entrepreneur?
Maybe a researching entrepreneur.
I like that.
So I can't detach those two. I can't say one or the other. I think they are, in my case, really coupled together. I like the entrepreneurial part, but I couldn't be an entrepreneur without the research. So
That makes sense. Yeah. And the last one for you, that's a tough one. Greece, Germany, or Switzerland?
Greece for vacation. Mm, Not for living. Couldn't live there. Mm, Switzerland for work. And Germany is home.
Perfect. Alex, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was a pleasure to hear more about your
It was
impressive
a pleasure.
journey.
Thank you very much, Silvan, for the opportunity, and also again, thank you for supporting us with Swisspreneurs. And it was really a pleasure. And also, I have to say, also your processes are perfectly in line, and I think you have a great quality management system or whatever makes your processes so lean and line. So it was also a pleasure to work with you guys.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, you can support us by rating our show on Apple Podcasts. This way, we can reach an ever-growing number of aspiring entrepreneurs.